Okay, so have you ever been there? You know, you're in a really important conversation, maybe at work, maybe at home. You're laying out what you think are like your best points, and you just get this feeling. Is anyone actually listening? Like really listening? It's super frustrating, right? When it feels like your words just, I don't know, disappear. We've definitely all felt that. So in this deep dive, we're going to try and cut through that. We'll look at some surprising, maybe even counterintuitive reasons why this happens, and more importantly, how we can fix it. Our source today, why people don't listen to you and how to fix it. Yeah, it's really direct, almost uncomfortably honest about this whole thing.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the core idea, the really foundational thing from the source, it's actually pretty counterintuitive. It basically says, look, often the biggest reason people aren't hearing you, it isn't about how brilliant your message is or, how loud you are. It's often because you might not be truly listening to them. Simple as that sometimes. So our mission today really is to boil these ideas down into stuff you can actually use, actionable strategies for, every interaction.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that. Because the source, like you said, it doesn't pull punches about why someone might just, mentally check out while you're talking. It's not just like their phone buzzing. It mentions things like a really flat vocal tone. Monotonous, doesn't signal what's important, or sentences that just kind of meandered, no clear point. It actually creates like cognitive overload for the listener. It's not just the words, it's how our brains even process the sound.
Precisely. And that brings up this deeper dynamic about attention, right? If you're just dominating the whole conversation, not leaving any space, no pauses for someone else to jump in, you basically shut down that back and forth loop. And the source really hits on this. We're kind of hardwired for reciprocity as humans. If you don't show genuine interest in what others are saying, why would their brains spend energy paying attention to you? It's not just about being polite. It's almost like a subconscious social agreement.
Right, right. So how do you actually flip that? How do you go from feeling like you're just talking at someone to feeling genuinely heard? This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The source basically says the biggest change comes from becoming a master listener yourself. And not just passively, like waiting for your turn to talk. No, it's active listening, engaged, creating that feeling of like safety and validation for the other person. When you really try to understand, not just plan your comeback, you pause, you speak thoughtfully, people kind of subconsciously give that respect back. You're building trust.
Exactly. That validation is key. And the source gives some really powerful, practical ways to do this. For example, instead of just stating facts dryly, try speaking in vivid pictures. Use stories, metaphors. Our brains are just wired differently for that stuff. So instead of saying, I was confused, maybe try, it felt like I was navigating a maze blindfolded. See the difference? Brains grab onto stories and images much faster. They remember them better than just, abstract data. It makes your message stick. It kind of activates their mirror neurons, creates a shared feeling.
Yeah, that maze blindfolded thing that really clicks. It paints such a clear picture instantly. Another technique the source points out, which sounds simple but is apparently quite powerful, is just using the other person's name sometimes.
Yeah.
It instantly makes it personal, right? Signals respect, grabs attention on a deeper level, and it also talks about mirroring, not like mimicking, but subtly matching their energy, their tone, maybe even posture, within reason, obviously.
Yeah.
Apparently, this builds something called isopathy, like a subconscious alignment. Makes people feel more comfortable, more open to listening.
And if you tie all this together, the whole thing really pivots back to that core idea, listening to understand, not just listening to reply. So in any situation, work, home, wherever, if you feel like you're not being heard, the source suggests the very first, most powerful step is to look inward. Examine how you're engaging with others. Are you asking real questions to clarify, not just rhetorical ones? Are you actually leaving space for their thoughts before you jump in with yours? Doing this doesn't just make them feel good, although it does. It actually primes their brain to be more receptive when it is your turn to speak. So ultimately, what the source makes clear is this kind of fundamental shift, almost a paradox. Being heard isn't really about being louder or having the perfect speaking trick. It's more about cultivating real presence, showing respect by actually listening deeply, approaching conversations with genuine curiosity. When you give those things authentically, your words just naturally seem to land better. You earn attention. You don't have to fight for it.
So thinking about all that, what does it mean for you moving through your day? Maybe just consider this for a moment. What could actually change, like tangibly change in your daily interactions, personal, professional, all of it, if you shifted your focus just a bit? Less on fighting so hard to be heard and more on truly empathetically listening. Someone to think about.